Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you so much for coming along on the journey of this show that we designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, please visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to co-host this show with Craig Brown, who is an industry veteran and a former PLM leader at General Motors. But today's episode, it's just me. Today's episode, we're going to chat a little bit about what's going on right now in our society with work around all of the fallout from the coronavirus. We thought it was an important topic to bring to our visitors, and I just wanted to share some of my observations that I've run across working with my clients. I've spent the better part of the last 15 years teaching people how to connect better in a gadget-crazy world. Now, we all know that we have our cell phones and our social media, and we have loved these tools, and they are awesome. I'm a huge fan of digital and social media. However, to some extent, it's made it harder for people to be able to connect one-on-one. A lot of people don't feel that even though they have thousands of people they're connected to on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube or Snapchat or whatever, they don't feel that they have a close circle of friends. We have had some social distancing happening for a long time, but now that's being exacerbated by the fact that many of you are being asked to work from home. And we thought it was important just to go over some things and some ideas to help you in this really tough time. Because each week we try to bring useful ideas to all the listeners so that we can help you enhance and grow your careers. So today I thought I would be serious and talk about these scary and uncertain times that we live in, and maybe share with you some tips I've learned along the way of how you can socially tighten your relationship in the world where we're being asked to socially distance. I actually think that right now, everybody is facing a lot of issues. Many people in your company are being asked to work from home who have never worked from home before. They're being asked to use technologies that they haven't used. We're being asked to complete projects alone or virtually that we've usually worked on in groups. There's a whole bunch of moving parts. And the reality is this is the Wild West for all of us. And here at the Digital Enterprise Society, we wanted to make sure that you don't feel alone, because you're not. You're part of a community. The Digital Enterprise Society, it's here to help. And so they asked me if I would just talk a little bit about what I've been doing with my clients and my friends in promoting this idea of social tightening. Now, many of you realize that working alone is hard, and staying motivated is really difficult. And the other thing is, for some people, and this is not an introvert or extrovert thing, this is for everybody. For a lot of us, our work is a huge part, if not the majority, of the social fabric of our society. We go to work, we interact with people, and it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, those are the people who you have the most contact with on a day. Many of us spend more awake time with our coworkers than we do with our families. And now we're being asked to work from home. So a lot of you are setting up workstations, trying to be able to do this. At the same time, your spouse might be doing the same, or significant other is doing the same exact thing. And if you happen to have children, now they aren't going to school and they're underfoot as well. So my wife has worked from home for more than 10 years, but I'm often away traveling because I speak at a lot of conferences and do consulting with companies, and the kids had been at school. Now all of a sudden, our oldest child, who's the only one at home, has been asked to be home for 3 weeks of spring break and then probably do distance learning. Meanwhile, my calendar of working with companies and speaking at conferences has been cleared for the next couple of months. So suddenly we're all in the house 24 hours a day. And so actually setting up sort of some ground rules of where to work, how to stay focused, how to make sure you're getting done what your clients or your boss or your coworkers, your colleagues expect you to do, it's not easy. But the first thing I've been trying to tell everybody is, in every interaction that you have with anyone, some of you have outward-facing jobs where you may be talking to clients, some of you might just be working with internal teams. No matter who you're working with, realize that that other person on the other side of that phone call, that Zoom call, that email, that text, they're a human being who's dealing with this in their own way. And as I started off by saying these are scary times, a lot of people are worried. A lot of industries are being hit harder than others. We have seen some layoffs actually start to occur just a couple of weeks into this pandemic. And therefore, a lot of people may have trepidations, worried about themselves, worried about their future, worried about being able to pay their rent or their mortgage or buy food. So start from a place of empathy. Make sure that as you are engaging with people, the first question you should ask is, how are you? You know, we live in this world where we are distanced now suddenly from everybody, but it doesn't mean that we want to be invisible. And I think a lot of people are going to fall into that position where they feel more alone and more disconnected. Here's the thing. We've had an epidemic of loneliness already happening in this country long before this crisis came along. There was an article in the Harvard Business Review about 2.5 years ago by Dr. Vivek Murthy, and he was the Surgeon General, the 19th Surgeon General of the United States. He was the Surgeon General under President Barack Obama. And as he was exploring a lot of the issues that were happening around the opioid crisis in the country, he discovered that there was this underlying problem that about 20% of people admit to feeling lonely some of the time or all of the time. And he wrote this article called The Epidemic of Loneliness. And it is now coming out. He'll be releasing a book in April called Togetherness. And it's all about how disconnected people are feeling. I've gotten really concerned about this as we've been asked to go and work from home, because as I said earlier, for a lot of people, work is their social structure. So take that time to ask people how they're doing. And if they say fine, maybe in some cases you don't stop at fine. Maybe ask a few more questions. People want to be seen. And I think in this time where we can't see people face to face, it's really important to know that someone out there knows that we're here and cares. So try to remember that no matter what project is going on, no matter what fires are happening back at the office, that you have to start with that piece from that part from empathy. Just care about your fellow human being. And some of those people will let you know that they care back. Little secret, not all of them will. Some people are going to be overwhelmed by what's going on and not be able to look beyond their own nose. Don't keep score. Just start from that place of empathy. The other thing I'm telling everybody is in your communications, we need to work to more personal and less broadcast. I don't know about you, but in the last week or so, I have received more newsletters in my email inbox than ever before. And in fact, all of them start off talking about the different, their opinions and their policies and their company's situation around coronavirus. There's a lot of group chats from friends just texting everyone they know in a single text or a single email, telling people what they're up to or asking people how they are. I think we need to move towards more one-on-one communication. So try to think, how can I be more personal and less broadcast as I reach out? Think about telephone calls one-to-one or texts one-to-one, a single email to a single person. Or if you're using Slack or other online tools where you can pull out and just talk to one person just on the side of that group conversation, let them know that you heard them and that you understand what they're saying, it will go a long way. And the other thing is that we don't want to abandon social media because that is a connection for a lot of people. I'm not saying social media is bad. Social media can be very good if you use LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Now is a good time to be focused on, are you leaving that like or that comment behind? It's a good way to let a person know that they're there. So as we're facing these times, I think you have to think about the big five. Who can you keep in touch with? And it starts with your family. Make sure, obviously, that you're keeping in touch with the people who are in your house. And I'm going to talk about an idea a little bit later about having a daily check-in with everybody who's there just to see how your spouse, your kids, whoever lives in your home, how everybody's doing, and maybe scheduling that individual activity. But your extended family, your parents might live far away. We live in a society where a lot of us are distanced from our parents. And if you have aging parents, there's a lot of concerns around what's going on with this virus and making sure they stay safe. So make your family a priority. Yes, work is important, but prioritize that. The second layer is your friends. Don't let your friends feel distanced and alone. While we maybe can't have a giant dinner party, maybe you can go for a walk with somebody. Maybe you can just do a Zoom call or a FaceTime call just to get them in front of it. Make sure that you're checking in on the people who are in that inner circle of your life. Then there's work. You have a boss, you have coworkers, you might have direct reports. Make sure that you are keeping in touch with them and that you're touching in, making sure not only that the work is getting done, but that their own situation is taken care of. You might not realize it, but a lot of people, while your job might be secure, your company might be fine, their spouse might work in the meetings industry. For those of us who work in and around association and corporate meetings, everything has stopped. And it's not just someone like me who's a speaker and a trainer. This goes all the way down to the people who work in the hotels and in the convention centers and in the restaurants, the servers, etc. If somebody's spouse has one of those jobs that has evaporated, they very well might be feeling a sense of overwhelm. So get to know your coworker on that personal level. You don't have to pry. You don't have to be that person who's digging in too far, but just let them know that in addition to getting the work done on the projects that you have, that you're there for them as another human being who cares. Now, for those of you who have jobs where you touch the outside, maybe you have an exterior job where you work with clients, maybe it's vendors, maybe it's partner companies, you also want to make sure that you're reaching out to people. Now isn't the time to be selling your products or services. I heard a great line the other day, and I wish I knew where it came from because I would gladly give that attribution, but they said, helping is the new selling. I've reached out to a bunch of my clients and just said, what can I do for you? I'm not looking to be paid. I have a lot of free time on my hands. What can I do to be a benefit to you? And some of them haven't responded. Others have wrote back and said, oh, thanks for the offer. There's nothing you can do. And a few others have said, gosh, that is so good. I could use this type of help. And you know what? That's what it's about. Make sure that with the people who you touch outside of your company, but in a business type relationship, that they know that you see them as a human. And then finally, what about your own community? So I reached out to one of my high school friends who I haven't talked to in quite a long time, but he lives in New York City. And I know that New York is being hit somewhat hard. And I just said, how are you? And he wrote me a long, several paragraph letter back saying, thank you for reaching out. And he told me about the fact that he lives in a building that has a couple of older people. And one of the things that he's doing to help keep himself sane during this time is he's checking in on them, making sure that they have what they need. He's going to the store and making sure he's picking up specific items that they need so that they don't have to go out because they are in their 70s and 80s and more susceptible to everything that's going along. So find a way to reach out to whatever your community is. I think that if we can find a way to serve, it'll make us feel better and help us navigate this crazy, crazy time. So for those of you who are working from home for the first time, I have sort of a list of some ideas that may or may not have crossed your mind. Some of them are quite simple. You'll be like, bah, Tom, we already know that. Some of them might be, that's interesting. And others might just be what one or two of you who are listening to this podcast, it might just be exactly what you needed to hear today. So in no particular order, I'm going to go through some ideas of how, when you're working from home, you can actually work on socially tightening your relationships with all of those people, all of those demographics that we talked about while you're practicing social distancing. So remember, first of all, that it's very easy for people to feel cut off from the world. When you're working from home and just communicating by group emails with your whole team, it could be very easy for you to feel you're left out. It's kind of like when you walk by the conference room and your whole team is having a meeting and you weren't invited, immediately your mind starts playing kinds of tricks. It might have been as simple as you didn't need to be in the meeting, so they didn't include you because they didn't want to waste your time. It might have been that they forgot to send you the email. It might have been that there was a technology hiccup and you didn't get the email. Usually those types of things aren't you being totally excluded, but our mind fills in the blanks when we don't know what's going on. And for a lot of people, it's really easy to make up the story that somehow someone was slighting you out of that meeting. This can be exasperated and be a bigger deal when we're dealing in a virtual situation. If you are excluded from a phone call, don't immediately think it's because somebody's trying to do an end run around you. Yeah, there's still going to be office politics, even though you're not going to be in the office. And that office bully who always has some way of putting other people down, they're going to find a new way to do it in this digital world. However, don't automatically jump to conclusions that the world is against you and trying to cut you out. So just pay attention and make sure that you're doing the efforts to make sure that you're tightening those social connections. Next thing is schedule regular check-ins. Now this goes back all the way up to when we're talking about family and friends and community. However, when you're dealing with the situation where you are now a remote worker, you need to take it upon yourself to schedule regular check-ins with the people who matter. Get it on the calendar and make sure that they understand the purpose for this. Don't waste people's time. Don't overdo it, But at the same time, you don't want to go too long without having some sort of a communication with your colleagues, your boss, and your direct reports. The next tip, focus on being productive as you can. Most leaders realize that in this really weird, uncertain, crazy, overwhelming time, we're not going to get projects done the same way we were getting them done in the office when we were all working that 9 to 5 time where we're coming in and going at the same time and everybody's on a project. Some of it's going to slip, but take personal ownership that you're going to be as productive as you can. That means turn off the TV. Don't necessarily be multitasking while you're trying to get the work done. Now, you might want to have a podcast, this one per se, or the radio on in the background if you're a person who likes a little bit of background noise. However, I would recommend not having CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CBS, NBC, whatever your news source is. I would recommend not having that playing in the background and not having those website tabs open to every piece of news, because every time you hear ding, you're going to want to go check to see what's happening. So focus on being productive during that time. And make sure that when you're focusing on that productivity during that time, that you're picking a start and a stop time for your daily work. You have that when you're in the office. You have a certain time that you commute in, you show up. There's a certain time of day where you have to go. Maybe you have daycare to pick up, so you always leave at 5 o'clock. Whatever it is, try to have some sort of normalcy to your day. Don't get sucked into where you're working from wake up to go to bed. And on the flip side, don't get sucked into where you're doing the laundry, walking the dog, doing everything else during those hours when you're trying to be productive. Another little tip is make sure that your family knows and understands that you have some work to do. Now, for those of you with small kids at home, this is going to be a lot harder. My kid at home is 18. She's a high school senior, and she's dealing with her own issues. They've got to finish out the semester. They've got to figure out how to get projects done. Prom and graduation both could be on the chopping block to be canceled. There's a lot of stress going on if you have children of any age in the house. But if you have small kids, you're going to have to kind of figure out how to get that done. I have one friend who's a professional speaker who has a 2.5, 3-year-old, and his wife is working remotely from home, but she has a really intense job. So what he has done, because his calendar has been cleared, he's not going to be speaking for the next month or two. He has taken on preschool as his job as dad. So every day his kid goes to preschool in their spare bedroom. And what he does is he makes sure that they're in that spare bedroom for most of the day, just like their kid would be away from the wife while she's working during that time. So maybe you have a grandparent or a parent or a neighbor or a friend who you can trade off some time to make sure that those kids are being occupied doing activities. And if you have older kids who can understand what's going on, let them know that between these certain hours, I really need to get some work done, and they're going to have to, self-regulate and do things on their own. I have one friend who long before this, who worked from home, who he had a special baseball cap. And if he was sitting at his computer with his baseball cap on, that meant don't bother me unless the house is on fire or you broke an arm. And that way his family understood that work time was when the hat was on, and the rest of the time he was open to whatever. Another idea, and again, these aren't in order, so I'm bouncing around a little bit, is take a little bit of time. I talked about using email and Slack and text and phone. Take some time to write a few handwritten notes. I know that seems like old school and old fashioned, but imagine for a minute if you got the mail and there was a handwritten note from somebody in your life saying, I know these are tough times, but I'm thinking about you, with like maybe a little smiley face. Would that make you feel better or not? Very few people would take a handwritten note, throw it on the ground going, why did they do that? They could have texted me. Most people will realize that you've taken that extra step to reach out and touch them as a human being. Just because we have technology now doesn't mean the old-fashioned little things still don't touch people in a special, personal way. So maybe once a week, send a handwritten note. If you're really aggressive, do 5. I am going to try every single week while we are in this situation to send 10 handwritten notes to people who I know, just to say thanks for being part of my life and I hope you're doing well. Will it make a huge difference? I don't know, but I know that if I can do these types of little things, it's going to matter to somebody. Another great idea is to reach out to people who you normally would socially interact with, either in a business setting. Back at the office, you've got some people who you go to lunch with all the time, or you hit happy hour after work, or you stop and get coffee on the way in just to talk about your day, to share. You can still do those things. Now, we're not supposed to do them together. Starbucks are all closed. You can't go do it there. The bars are closed. You can't go to happy hour. But you could do a virtual coffee or a virtual lunch or a virtual happy hour, which means You schedule a time with that person, whether it's a friend or a coworker or a family member, and you both log on to something like FaceTime or Zoom or Skype, where you have that video conferencing capability. You have your glass of wine or cup of coffee. They have their glass of wine or cup of coffee or a meal, and you just sit and talk as if you're across the table from each other in some bistro. Is it perfect? No, but it's better than not having any connection to those people at all. Another tip, use your calendar reminders in your calendar on your phone to schedule times to reach out to people. You're going to get busy. There's going to be a lot of stuff. Some of you have jobs where there's still going to be really big deadlines. You need to schedule those little timer things so that you can reach out to people. So make that list. I'm telling people to make a list of 50 people who they would like to socially tighten with while they're socially distancing. And during the time of the next couple of months, make sure that every week, every couple of weeks, you're somehow connecting with those people on a one-on-one basis. Now, for some of you, you'll be like, Tom, 50 people, that's too many. Then make it 25. For other people, I say make it 100. You have to be true to yourself. Who are you as a person? If you're a little bit more introverted, own that. It's totally cool. But it doesn't mean that you should be shut off. Even the most introverted person has somebody they care about. All it takes is a couple of keystrokes to say, I'm thinking about you in a text, and let them know it. So schedule that timer, schedule that reminder in your phone to do that. Another thing is you do want to keep up with the news. Things are changing so fast. I'm not sure exactly when this podcast is going to air, but I do know that 1 week ago, we were not in the situation we're in today. And 1 week from now, it could be even crazier. So make sure that you're keeping up with the news so that you're aware of what's being recommended by the CDC, by the World Health Organization, by the country, by the government, by your individual state and your city. Things are changing really fast, so make sure that you're staying up on it. And while you're doing all of this, another good idea is to schedule a little bit of personal time. I'll tell you what, I'm really social. I love to be around people. I am truly that casebook extrovert. However, being in the same house with my wife and my kids all day long, I can tell eventually is going to wear on all of us. So while I think that you should be in touch with the people you're living with and who are in your building, if you're in an apartment, etc., you also have to have some me time. And so figure out, what does that mean? Maybe for me, it's going out for a hike. You know, I like nature. I like to go outside. They're still saying it's okay to leave the house and to go out. You just have to have your distance. The great thing about going out on a trail, you always have your distance, you know, for the most part. So just go out onto, you know, your own version of the Greenbelt. I live in Austin, Texas. We have this amazing series of trails, lots of places you can enter, lots of places you can go. Go out into your area of nature and just go for a walk. Or even if it's just around your neighborhood, take a little bit of time for yourself. If you're more introverted and you need that downtime, make sure that you're taking time to go into your room, shut the door, take a long bath, whatever it is that you do to unwind. And make sure you communicate that with the people who you live with. I just need a little bit of me time. I think that's really important. Now, the flip side of that, and I said this in the intro, is I think every day you should have some sort of a family activity. One of my friends who's a professional speaker, his college kids are all home. He still has a high school kid. His wife is there. And everybody's trying to get work done. Everybody's trying to get everything done. They're all living in one house, 5 people. He's been very used to for a while just having 3. So 5 is a big number. And everybody's on the internet, everybody's doing things, the kids are chatting with their friends, but every day they do something, whether that's going outside and playing in the backyard, whether it's going for a hike, whether it's watching a movie together as a family, or whether it's cooking dinner and eating together as an entire group. He has mandated that his family spend that time doing something together. And I think that's a great idea that you definitely need to think about. On the work side, make sure that you have a list of projects that you need to get done during this time, and slowly work through that to-do list. Talk to your boss, talk to your colleagues, prioritize what can be done and what should be done, and make sure that you're working on that. No matter what's going on in our world, having some sort of some sort of a goal, something that you can work for. We like it as people. Work is good for us. We like having a purpose. So make sure that you know what that project is that you're trying to work towards. Also, be supportive of the other people you work with. If they drop the ball a little bit on one of those projects, if they fall behind, if they're not able to get their work product to you right away, have a good heart, be supportive, be a little bit flexible. Remember what I said early on about empathy. I think that's really, really important. And when we talked about social media, I do think this is a time that if you're not one who usually looks at these things and hits that like button or leaves a comment, I think now is a good time to do that. Find the people and the organizations that you're a part of, your company's page, your friends, and just hit that like button more often than not. It lets people know that you saw what they did. Again, I don't think social media is the answer to social tightening in our social distancing world. However, the tools that are out there, people are using them. Let people know that they're seen. Do that by simply hitting that little heart if it's on Twitter, or the like button if it's on Facebook, whatever it is on LinkedIn. Go through and do that. The other thing is make sure that you are connecting to the people who are the important ones in your life, whether it's a list of 25, 50, or 100. Make sure that you are on the same page with them, using the tools that they use so that you can at least let people on a superficial level know, I'm still here. Same thing, even if you're one who usually doesn't comment, I would leave some sort of a comment. Try not to be too negative. Try not to be too worrisome. If you're overwhelmed, don't let that necessarily be every single post. But at the same time, be true to yourself, but put some stuff out there because people will see it. And we need to remember that that is important. So these are unique and hard times that we're living in. I don't know if that list of ideas is helpful to any of you or all of you, but I think that we need to remember that we're all people and we need to find ways to come together. We need to strengthen those bonds right now more than at any other time in history. And we have the digital tools to be able to do it. Imagine for just a minute, if you were quarantined 100 years ago, all you would have is maybe those handwritten notes and some books to read. You wouldn't have anything else. But now we have so much ability to connect with people. Again, I don't think these digital connections are as good as the face-to-face thing that we're drawn to do, but it's all we have for a little while. So we need to make sure that we're being smart and working through this. I do know one thing. This is going to pass. We as a society, we are going to get through this. As a world, we're going to have some kicks in the teeth and in the stomach and in the butt. But I definitely know that we're going to get through this. And the best way to get through it is together. We need people. But there's also going to be some long tail economic issues that are going to follow this. Now, some of your companies may or may not be affected, but people in your neighborhood, people in your family, people in that extended circle of friends, they or the people they love are going to be affected by the illness or by the economic long tail of people being out of work for long amounts of time, which means that we have to get into that idea of community and support. Your community, and that means work, family, friends, neighborhood, faith community, etc. Community matters. People matter. Now is the time I think all of us have to find a way to choose people. If you have some people you haven't gotten along with, or you have some stuff that's gone under the bridge, now is a great time to just let it go. I'm not saying you have to forgive everybody if they've wronged you, but now is a time to try to move past that. So remember this, work hard, get your projects done, be committed to helping your team and your company succeed. But most important, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of those around you. These are hard times, but we are going to be fine. And the Digital Enterprise Society, it is a community. So make sure that you're checking in on all the social media outlets and at the digitalenterprisesociety.org website. There are so many podcasts and webinars where you can take some downtime to learn and get inspired with some career ideas. Reach out to the other people who you know through your affiliation in this world and make sure that you're keeping connected with them. So join us next week when we're going to have more thoughts, ideas, and information to help you with your career if you work in and around product lifecycle management. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Be sure to check us out at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.